কখনো পোষ না মানে উড়িল জংলা হৃদয় হয়ে পিছে পিছে ধাই চুমকুড়ি দিয়ে আয় 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 করি বৃথা দেখে মনে অন্তর চাতুরি না শুনে কানে না শুনে কানে জংলা পাখি কখনো পোষ না মানে পোষ না মানে পোষ না মানে।
It was a hot April afternoon of the year 1860. Chandramukhi lay tossing and groaning on a soiled sheet spread over a narrow wooden chowki in the birthing room of Shonagachi. Shonagachi was a brothel spread over a space of 3,000 square yards, and though tucked away from sight of respectable folk, stood in a prime location of North Calcutta within a mile of the royal houses of Shobhabazar and Marble Palace. It slept in silence by day and blazed with light, color and sound at night.
ও বাবু ফুল দেবে গো বাবু বেল ফুল বাবু এসো না বাবু
চল কোথায় যেতে হবে বল চল চল ভেতরে চল।
But the glamour of the night was an illusion that melted away with dawn and revealed the place for what it truly was. A world in itself, a small, dim, airless world where women were trapped in ill-ventilated rooms, crammed together like cells in a prison, and peddled their bodies for a few annas each night. They came from the lowest rungs of society and the poorest of families, and all, barring a few who had the good luck of attracting generous clients, looked crushed and defeated.
There were too many exploiters in the profession. Their customers abused their bodies and transmitted deadly diseases. Pimps, madams and servants demanded exorbitant shares for what they earned. Most of them were malnourished and looked paid and emaciated. As the women lying in the birthing room, caught in the throes of hard, difficult labor. This was Chandramukhi's 7th confinement. Chandramukhi's youth and beauty were things of the past. She had been infected with deadly disease, para, syphilis, for years and would have died long ago if the kindly Koviraj, the Ayurvedic practitioner, had treated her with special herbs and roots and kept her going. But though she lived on, all the children she gave birth to were either stillborn or died in a few months. Her future was bleak, and she was haunted day and night by a terrible fear. Her body was aging and losing its attraction. She was getting fewer and fewer customers. What would she do when no one wanted her? She had no money saved and no children to support her. It was difficult for a woman like her to find employment as a cook or maid. Begging was the only solution. But she was too worn out, too exhausted to stand for hours in the streets and beg for a few pies.
Daima, this child has to be saved at any cost. I'll turn old and feeble in a few years and will be thrown out into the streets. Who will I turn to then? How shall I live? If this one is stillborn, kill me too. Cut my throat with your chachari, Daima.
Hush, child. The old midwife Shitala Dai, who had presided over all the deliveries in Shonagachi, made soothing sounds at her. A chachari is meant to cut the umbilical cord, not the mother's throat. When you talk of dying, by Shonagachi's blessings, all will be well this time.
I've been visiting the Durga every day for years and drinking the holy water. But the Peer has no pity. He kills my little ones even before they are born.
দেহতরি দিলাম ছাড়িয়া গুরু তোমারি নামে আমি যদি ডুবে মরি গো আমি যদি ডুবে মরি ও কলঙ্ক তোমার নামে বাজারিরা বাজার করে কত রঙের বাতি জ্বলে গুরু দোকানের সামনে তারা জ্বালাইয়া বাতি করে ডাকাতিয়া সদর মুখালে গুরু তোমারি নামে দেহতরি দিলাম ছাড়িয়া
In the early days, when the three Bengal villages of Shudanoti, Govindapur and Kolkata were being merged together to form the new port city of Calcutta, a brilliant dacoit named Sanaullah lived in this area. At some point in his life, he gave up his wicked ways and turned to religion, taking on a new identity and a new name of Shonagazi. He became so well known for his good deeds that he was elevated to the status of a benign saint or P. After he died, the entire area around his tomb became known as Shonagazi. Over the years, the name got corrupted through repeated usage and became Shonagachi, the literal meaning of the word being tree of gold. Ironically, the name suited the brothel that sprang up 100 years later. With the passing of time, it grew in size and notoriety till it became the largest, most infamous brothel of Kolkata. The women living in it looked on Shonagazi as their patron saint and offered prayers and begged for boons at his tomb.
Oh, don't get disheartened, sister. Her friends Jomunabai, who had come to help with the birth, placed a wet cloth on Chandramukhi's hot, tossing head and said, Shanto ho jabon, Shanto ho. Shonagazi has heard your prayers. Think good thoughts and wait. Something tells me he will bless you with a healthy child this time.
Oh, Mother! Chandramukhi screamed as the final throes came on her. She felt red-hot iron pincers gripping her insides, twisting them, pulling something out of her body. And then, suddenly, it was over. The child slipped out and the sound of a hearty wail came to her ears. The sweat broke out on her body in relief. It's alive, Daima! But is it whole?
Yes, it is healthy and whole, with all the limbs intact, down to the toes and fingers. What's more, it is a girl. Send someone to the beach immediately with the sadka. He has answered to your prayers and given you your heart's desire. It's a perfect child this time and will live. There is only one thing. She's dark, very dark. Shitaladai swaddled the infant in a kantha and held her out for the mother to see.
Chandramukhi gazed at her daughter with tears streaming down her cheeks. She had a perfectly formed face with huge, deeply lashed eyes and features so fine they seemed chiseled out of marble. Her skin gleamed like polished ebony. Just then, something strange happened. A pair of cuckoos came flying in through the window and whirled in circles around the newborn's head, wobbled sweetly, and flew out again. The infant stopped her wailing and looked at them, her bright eyes darting this way and that. The tiny lips parted in a smile.
Oh my God! Jomunabai exclaimed. An omen, a good omen. She will have a melodious voice, as sweet as a quail's. I will train her myself and teach her all I know. Who cares if she's dark? People will come from far and near to listen to her singing.
Take her. Take her. I'm so ill-fated. She'll never survive as my child. I know that. Buy her from me, I beg you.
Buy her from you?
Yes. Give me some money and buy her. She will stay with me and I'll rear her. But she will belong to you.
Do what she's saying, Ma. The midwife turned to Jamuna. Give Chandu some money and buy her. Jamuna, the born in Kolkata, hadn't heard of Bengali custom of selling a child in order to ward off the curse of childlessness. She came from a long line of singing girls of Lucknow. Her grandmother, Pannabai, had been sent for 60 years ago by a wealthy Jomidar of Kolkata to sing at the wedding of his son. She had never gone back. She had fallen so deeply in love with him that she had agreed to stay on as his mistress. On her protector's death, Pannabai found that he had left her nothing. Driven out of her house by his sons, she had come to Shonagachi and embraced the life of a common prostitute. Her daughter and granddaughter had followed her profession, but both, like Pannabai, had singing and acting abilities and were often given parts in plays put up by the Bengal National Theatre.
Jomuna opened a knot at the end of her sari and found 3 pies. This is all I have just now. I will just go to my room and bring some more.
Are na. Chandramukhi and Shitalatai exclaimed together. This is not a real sale. It's purely symbolic. Jomuna was puzzled, but handed the 3 pies to Chandramukhi, who took it and tied it in her ranchuri. Taking the infant in her arms, Jomuna kissed her forehead and the little hands and feet. She had 2 sons, but had always regretted not having a daughter. Now she had one.
her name Menuka? Though dark, our daughter is as beautiful as an option.
You may give her any fancy name you like. I shall call her Teen Kodi. That's because I sold her for 3 pies.
The grand name Menuka died in the birthing room itself, and Teen Kodi stuck, shortened at times to Tino or Tini. She was a happy child, good and obedient, and had no trouble at all to her 2 doting mothers. And with every passing year, she grew more and more in beauty. Her dark skin shimmered like moonlight. Her limbs were limp and supple, with the agility of a wild doe. But she suffered from a grievous malady. Suddenly, out of the blue, she would start shivering and shaking and muttering words that made no sense to those around her. She would moan and mumble, then scream at the top of her voice.
What ails the girl? What is she saying? Chandramukhi asked Jamuna the first time this happened. Have you taught her the language of your ancestors? It doesn't sound like Bangla.
No, I haven't. How can I teach her Avadi when I have forgotten what little I knew myself? This sounds like a foreign language.
Jamuna's eldest son, Maheshwar, was a drummer in a British band and had picked up quite a few English words. It sounds like a language of Shahibs. I think she's saying, get out, leave me. I have heard the bandmaster speak these words when he is angry. Maheshwar also obliged the people gathered around the girl with a Bengali translation.
But why is Tindi saying this? Who does she want to get out? She has never heard the Shahib's language in her life.
In my opinion, Chadumashi, a spirit has possessed her. She needs to get exercised. I'll go and call the Ocha.
The Ocha? We won't subject our daughter to an Ocha's treatment.
It's too cruel.
I'm afraid you don't have a choice. Maheshwar rushed out of the room and returned with Harathon Ocha a few minutes later. Harathon was a blood-curdling figure, famous in the surrounding area for his exercising skills. A huge, hefty man, he always went about stark naked, with only a blood-red strip of cloth covering his genitals. His hair fell in dreadlocks to his waist, and his eyes flamed with ganja. Bring the girl out, he thundered, holding the smoking censer in his hand menacingly in the air. Chandramukhi and Jamuna carried Teen Kodi into the yard. Her clothes and hair were soaking wet. From the water the inmates had splashed on her face. Her eyes were closed, and her lips and chin dabbled with froth. She lay stiff and silent for a while. Then, suddenly, her head shot up, her limbs started flailing in the air, and she cried out,
Get up, leave.
Harathon crouched on his haunches by the girl's side and began reciting the mantras of deliverance with great aplomb. Om Hum Hanumati Rudrattakaya Hum Fat Om Namah Hanumate Rudrattarayo Devadana Vajakrakashal Bhuta Preta Pishacha Dakini Shakini Dushtagrano Bandhanaya Ramadutaya Swaha Om Hum Rudrattakaya Hum Fat. An hour went by, but nothing happened. Teen Kodi continued moaning and mumbling. Ah! He cried after a while. It's a stubborn ghost, and don't go easily. It's a white ghost. The white ones are the most difficult to drive out. No wonder. After all, they belong to ruling race. In a shop, a Rajacha. Stronger measures are called for. Twisting Teen Kodi's hair with one hand, he brought his basin down so heavily on her trembling limbs that she shrieked in pain.
Ah! Jamuna and Chandramukhi ran to the girl's side and stood between her and the raised basin. Stop it!
Stop it at once.
How can I cure her if you stand in my way? Haradon hadn't encountered opposition of this kind in his life's career as exorcist.
If you can drag the spirit out with your incense and mantras, go ahead. But dare touch her again with your besom, and I will cut your head off with my fish pot.
The women gathered around tried to stop them.
I little late, the witch had do his work.
But the two mothers were adamant. They wouldn't allow cruelty of the kind they had witnessed just now.
Let your precious daughter live with the ghost then. If you don't let me do my work in peace, why call me? He stomped out of the yard in a high dudgeon. Ganguly became her normal self soon after he left. And though the malady manifested itself from time to time, the Ojo wasn't sent for. Over the years, the attacks reduced both in number and intensity. And once she reached puberty, they stopped altogether.
Pinkuri grew into a lovely lass with a lissom but voluptuous figure. Her waist was as slim as a bamboo shoot, her breasts full and round as moons. Her hips had the curve of a Persian scimitar, and her dark skin glowed as though lit from within by 100 lamps. Jomunabai taught her the tumris and ghazals her grandmother had sung, and the Kathak dances her mother and she performed on stage. The girl's voice was sweet, a little husky, and her dancing a marvel to behold. Her hands and feet, delicate as lotus buds, moved with an agility and grace no one had seen before. She had another great gift, an extraordinary memory that enabled her to pick up whatever she taught in a few minutes. She would have benefited from an education, but Chandramukhi would not allow it, out of a conviction that book-learned women brought ill luck, not only to themselves, but to their near and dear ones as well.
Ganguly was initiated at the age of 13 in a North Indian ceremony dating from Pandavai's time. Nath Uttarvana. Discarding her nose ring, she donned a diamond stud, the symbol of her profession.
कैसे सजन आवे कैसे सजन घर जाइबे हो राम समझन आवे समझन आवे.
All the inmates of the brothel were treated to a good meal by Jamuna and their blessings sought. And her name was enrolled in Shonagachi register as Tenkuri Dashi, daughter of Jamuna Bai. She was given a room of her own, one of the better ones, facing the street, and Jamuna decorated it with her own hands. She bought an elaborate palongo with a high mattress and snowy sheets, a carpet, cushions, and bolsters. Sheets of multicolored glass beads were hung at the door and window to serve as curtains. A glass cabinet stood in a corner of the room, stocked with bottles of brandy and wine. And she had several new outfits made for Tinkuri, the kind dancing girls wore in the north. She also employed a Malini to bring in fresh flowers and garlands every day.
Within a few years, news of Tinkuri's astonishing allure spread far and wide, and men were drawn to her dark beauty and skill in music and dance like moths to a flame. Indeed, to see her whirling round and round the room in her sweeping lehenga of scarlet satin, brocade choli and spangled veil was like watching a smouldering coal with flames darting from it, licking the air, setting hearts and bodies on fire. Men from the uppermost echelons of society vied with one another to make her their mistress. One of them was a famous lawyer of Calcutta, another the zamindar of Shiki, and a third, so it was rumored, a grandson of the illustrious Prince Dwarkanath Thakur of Jorashako.
ভালোবেসে ভালো কাঁদাবে ভালো ভালোবাসা জানালে ভালোবেসে ভালো কাঁদাবে যদি মুজিবে না মনে ছিল যদি মুজিবে না মনে ছিল তবে কেন এত মন মজারে ভালোবেসে ভালো কাঁদালে ভালোবেসে ভালো কাঁদালে ভালোবেসে ভালো কাঁদালে.
Tinkuri did everything she was expected to do. She sang and danced all night at mehfils, went for excursions on the river with wealthy clients, even slept with them in return for large sums of money and expensive jewels. By the time she was 20, she had earned enough to buy a double-storied house in Rambagan, fine furniture and a carriage. Chandramukhi's worry about her future was a thing of the past. She moved out of Shonagachi with her daughter. So did Jamuna and her two sons. The younger one, Mohipal, who had studied for a few years at the local school, became Tinkuri's manager. But Tinkuri's heart wasn't in any of these things. What drew her with a passion bordering on frenzy was the theatre. As a child, when Jamuna still got parts, Tinkuri had accompanied her to rehearsals at the Bengal National Theatre, founded by one of the greatest luminaries of the land, Girish Chandra Ghosh.
But Girish Ghosh wasn't only the founder. He was a playwright, director, and lead male player as well. Every time the girl saw him, she gazed at the great man in awe and admiration. She had seen few men in her life, only pimps and musicians, and her mother's clients who were dark and ugly and crude in their ways. But here, It seemed to her stood a man among men. He had a figure of such immense proportions that everyone around him appeared dwarfed in size. As fair as a Gora, he had large eyes, perpetually bloodshot from the brandy he imbibed all day, till far into the night, and a head of waving black hair. If there was one defect, it was his neck, which was short and seemed sunk inside his shoulders. But the power of his voice and personality, as he directed the players, had such a magnetic effect on the girl that she stared at him till the eyes almost popped out of her head.
Stop goggling at the master, child. He has a volatile temper and may throw me out if you don't behave yourself.
Chastened and subdued Tinkori would lower her eyes, but before she knew it, she was staring again. Once, when she was about 8, she sat in the wings as usual, watching him directing a woman named Promodini Dashi. Kare bhoy, Jannavi Shahai, Shoriye Jannavi Pad Pravesha Samore, Pandobu Shahai Jodi Juthe Purandar, Tobu Joy Hoibe Samor. Promodini was a consummate actress and often played the lead female role in his plays. But for some reason, she wasn't getting the movements and intonation right.
Kare bhai, Jannavi Shahai, Shoriye Jannavi Pad Pravesha Samore, Pandobu Shahai Jodi Juthe Purandar, Tobu Joy Hoibe
Na, Premo hoche na. Arektu abeg dao, arektu abeg.
He made her try the lines again and again, then threw up his arms in despair.
What's wrong with you today, Premo? I am turning blue in the face, trying to make you understand your role. But you respond like a kaktarua, a scarecrow, limbs like sticks, and voice like a mewling of a cat.
He looked around, and suddenly his eyes fell on Tinkori as she sat, face cupped in her hands, gazing at him with her bright, intense gaze. He had seen the child before. He had noticed the absolute concentration with which she followed his every word and movement, and he saw it again today.
Hey, Chimli, edike aaye to dekhiye. Then, when she had jumped up and hastened to his side, he asked her, "Can you do it? Tuই korte parbi?"
He master mashai, parbo. Kare bhoy, Jannavi Shahai, Shoriye Jannavi Pad Pravesha Samore, Pandov Shahai Jodi Juthe Purandar, Tobu Joy Hoibe Samor.
Sadhu, sadhu.
To the amazement of the entire troupe, who stood about watching the scene, she rendered the lines with a perfection that left the master staring at her in much the same way she had stared at him. She had copied his every movement, her limbs moving as fluidly as his. Her voice lost its childish treble and came out rich and mellifluous. Her intonation was perfect. A death-like silence fell on the room.
Strange. I have never seen anything like this in my life. Here is a true talent. God-gifted talent. She will be a great actress someday. Jonah, bring her to me when she is a little older. I will train her myself.
Tinkori began her acting career at the age of 15, and within a few years, she became GHOSH's leading lady and one of the most renowned actresses of Bengal. He found her very easy to work with. She followed instructions so diligently that she hardly needed any rehearsals. And though totally illiterate, she couldn't read a written part. She had an amazing verbal memory. She had only to hear her lines spoken a couple of times, and she memorized them to perfection. Not only those of her own role. Before half the rehearsals had taken place, she knew the whole play by heart.
One day, Girish was sent for her. I have written a new play, Tini. I have chosen you for the lead female role. It isn't very long, but It's very demanding and difficult. You will have to give it your best.
Of course, Master Mashai. Whatever it is, I will give it all I have. What is the play? And what is my role?
It's an adaptation of famous tragedy by William Shakespeare. Have you heard of him?
No.
Ganguly shook her head. He's a great playwright, the greatest England has produced. He wrote 300 years ago, but his plays are performed to this day, not only in English, in other languages as well. And as for your role, I'll explain you detail later. The play is called Macbeth. It's a story of a great warrior whose overweening ambition brought on his ruin. I will play Macbeth and you, my wife. Rehearsals commenced.
When shall we three meet again? In thunder, lightning, or in rain?
When the hurdy-burdy is done, when the battle is lost and won,
Where the place?
upon the heath, there to meet with Macbeth.
দিদিলো বল না আবার মিলবো কবে তিন বনে যখন ঝরবে মেঘা ঝুপুর ঝুপুর চক চকাচক হানবে চিকুর কড় কড়া কড় কড়াত কড়াত ডাকবে যখন ঝনঝনে
যখন বাঁধবে মাতবে হারবে চিনবে থামবে লড়াই রন্ধ্রমে
কোনখানে বোন কোনখানে বোন কোনখানে
ধূষ্ণ রাড়ির মাঠে যাব ম্যাকবেথের সঙ্গে নেব ঘাটটি মেরে এক করে
Ganguly didn't like her role at first. Lady Macbeth was too hard, too ruthless, too cruel. The exact opposite of herself. She had played the tragic heroine in many plays, but they were all good and chaste women who suffered in silence and died without a murmur on their lips. Getting into her new character and presenting it went against her deepest instincts. Some of the words she had to utter embarrassed her. She, who had never borne a child, found it difficult to articulate lines like, I have given suck and know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked the nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out. She stuttered and floundered and made mistakes till a sharp reprimand from the master alerted her.
Stop being such a prig. Don't act as though you are a fine lady and have never uttered such words before. Everyone knows what you are. A whore from Shonagachi and nothing more.
However, as rehearsals progressed, she started adapting to the character and internalizing it. Slowly, though surely, it began to possess her. She thought of Lady Macbeth all day and dreamed of her at night. She sensed conflicting tensions within her, felt her personality changing. Her serenity, her simple placidity were giving way before a ruthless determination. She, who had always delivered her lines with effortless ease, was working on them with a frenzy she had never done before. Something, someone, seemed to be pushing her from within. She heard a voice whispering in her ear, goading her on, telling her that she had to make the role a success. She had to play her part as brilliantly as the great English tragedian Sarah Siddons, whose mesmerizing performance as Lady Macbeth had been hailed as the triumph of the 18th century. But it wasn't her mentor's voice she heard. It was another's.
The opening night arrived. The posters had been put up for some weeks now, and the hall was full. Among the audience were several Englishmen who had come not so much for their love of theatre as from a wish to put to the test a native playwright who had dared to adapt Shakespeare in Bengali, a language they considered fit only for speaking to the servants. They had all lived in Bengal for many years and understood it well. On GHOSH's first appearance as Macbeth, they nudged one another and sniggered. He was 50 years old by now and had turned flappy and tall-bellied from excessive drink. His draped whiskers and sideburns had been dyed bizarre black, and the wig he wore sat uneasily on his balding head. In his velvet coat and plaid kilt, with a sword hanging from a thickened waist, he appeared, as thought, like a caricature of Shakespeare hero. They looked forward to booing him in later.
Then, with the entrance of Lady Macbeth, GHOSH was forgotten. Mocking eyes turned solemn, were glued to his leading lady. Those who had seen her on the stage earlier could have sworn that she wasn't Tinkoridashi. Her dark skin had been painted white and pink, but with such skin, it looked completely natural on her. She could easily have passed for an English woman. In her velvet gown and satin kirtle, with a high white coif on her head, she was the picture of a medieval Scottish noble's wife. Tall, straight, and stately, there was a mannish air about her. Her eyes and mouth were hard, as though carved in stone, and when she spoke her lines, it was not her usual voice they heard. It had turned powerful and sonorous, with undertones and nuances so chilling that goosebumps broke out on the arms of her audience. A hush fell on the hall so deep one could hear a pin drop. Even those who had come to taunt and revile were stunned into silence. As the play advanced, the spectators saw the character changing before their eyes. The actress's evolution from a hard, evil, murderous queen to a woman with natural feminine instincts was so gradual, so smoothly flowing, it seemed as though it was happening in real life. Other characters came and went, but the spellbound audience had eyes for Lady Macbeth alone. All the flaws of the play and other roles were washed away in the brilliance of Tinkuri's performance. They watched her stony eyes turning bemused and bewildered, and heard her strident voice softening till it was little more than a whisper.
And in the final act, the guilt and angst that clawed at her heart as she walked from one end of the stage to the other, wringing her hands and muttering,
Who would have thought the old man to have so much blood in him?
left them dumbfounded. Tears rose to the eyes of the most hardened among the audience as she swayed and stumbled in the sleepwalking scene, murmuring,
Here's the smell of blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Oh, oh, oh.
and their heartbeats slowed down with answering resignation at the finality of our word.
What's done is done and cannot be undone.
Strangest of all was that the language did not stand in the way of our performance. Even the English section of the audience forgot that the play was being performed in Bengali. Curtain call came, a hushed silence fell, followed by a frenzied blast of applause. Volley after volley of taps, accompanied by loud voices shouting,
Three cheers for Tinkuri Dashi! Hip hip hooray!
echoed and re-echoed through the hall. Suddenly, an old gentleman, a planter who had decided to live on in India after retirement, rose to his feet. What a performance! He bellowed, voice quivering, face red with excitement. Sana Siddons comes to life. A new Sana Siddons.
You can't have seen him, Mr. Daniels. The man who sat next to him said with an amused smile, "She was long before your time, surely."
No, she wasn't. I have seen Mrs. Siddons as a boy. My pal, early bloomed, and I were both madly in love with her. An adolescent crush. Whenever we managed to cobble a few shillings together, we would slip out of our beds and walk all the way to the theatre in Drury Lane or Covent Garden, wherever she is performing. We were caught sometimes, whipped and kept on bread and water. But even the harshest punishment couldn't stop us. We went again and again. She was a marvel, a true marvel. And a Lady Macbeth, But this evening's actress is no less, not a bit less, I swear. I felt transported to the past. So great is the resemblance. Waving a stick in the air, he called out for GHOSH. Ho, Director Babu, bring your leading lady on the stage. She deserves a standing ovation.
Yes, yes! Bring her! Bring her!
Other voices shouted. GHOSH hurried to the green room, but Tinkuri wasn't there. Where had the girl gone? The din outside was getting louder and louder. The demand to see her more insistent every minute. Coming out of the room, he looked here and there. He found her in a few seconds, crouching in a dark corner of the wings, shivering and moaning and muttering gibberish. What's wrong with you? Get up at once and come on stage. The audience wants to give you a standing ovation. Tinkuri looked at him with unseeing eyes and continued to toss her head and moan and whimper. And now he caught snatches of what she was saying. It sounded like GHOSH picked up the glass pot of water lying on the green room table and splashed it on her face and into her mouth, making her choke and gurgle. A violent fit of hiccups racked her body. Her limbs went still, and she stopped her muttering. GHOSH hauled her roughly to her feet and dragged her onto the stage.
The spectators, all ready to give her a thunderous applause, stared dumbfounded. Her form seemed trapped within a column of white smoke, and they couldn't see her clearly.
Where did the smoke come from?
Am I hallucinating? The thought rose in the mind of each person present. People rubbed their eyes and glanced at others around them. The same wonder was on every face. Then, slowly, the column started moving. It drifted this way and that, leaving patches of clarity through which Tinkuri's frame swayed in and out. Who was this woman? She was not the one who had held them in thrall for the last 3 hours. This was someone else. Water streaming down her face had washed off the paint, exposing her dark skin in bizarre streaks. Her limbs were crouched in fear, and a pair of haunted eyes darted this way and that, cringing, cowering. She didn't seem to know who she was and where she was. But before the onlookers could react, something extraordinary happened. The smoke moved upwards, changing contours as it went. And now, before hundreds of amazed eyes, it took a woman's shape. tall, blue-eyed woman with broad shoulders, long neck, and a deep bosom, stately and regal of mien. She wore a dress of white satin, its voluminous skirts swelling and billowing over an old-fashioned crinoline. A hat shaped like a turban sat on her head, the folds of which were held together with a diamond clasp. The apparition rose to the ceiling. Then, slowly, very slowly, it floated past the proscenium, over the heads of the audience, and out of the door.